Okay, so we're going to go over Unit 1, Lesson 9, Scientific Notation. So the key part of scientific notation is that you're always going to have two parts. You're going to have your starting part, and you're always going to have times 10 to some exponent. There can only ever be one number out in front of the left-hand side of the decimal point, and that can only be it can only be equal to or greater than 1, and they can only go up through 9. So if you have 0.05, you can have to move that decimal point over to the right. Or if you had 11, you would have to move that decimal point over to the left. So you always have to have only one digit in front of the decimal, and you're always going to have the times 10 to some exponent. Alright, so if I have this number here and I want to put it into scientific notation, I know I'm going to have to get this so the decimal point is here. So 4.81, and then you have to put in that times 10, and now we have to figure out what our exponent is. So our decimal point is currently right here, and we want to get it to this point here. So we have to count how many places we move it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. One more makes 13. So our exponent on the 10 is going to be 13. So if I was given in scientific notation 1.68 times 10 to the 8th, and we want to put that into that standard form, so the way we normally write it out, I'd have to start with the 1.68, and now we're going to have to move that decimal point 8 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So then we can just rewrite it so it looks a little neater. And that is our standard form and our scientific notation form of the same number. So if you notice, the scientific notation form is a little easier to read and is a lot easier to write, and you don't have to worry about missing any of those zeros. So that's one reason why we write it this way. It's just because scientists are lazy. We like to make things shorthand, so we try to shorten it up that way so we don't have to write out all these zeros constantly. Okay, so now if we were going to add two scientific notation numbers together, so for example, alright, so if we have 3.7 times 10 to the 20th power plus 4.45 times 10 to the 20th power, if you notice both of the powers are the same, so we can actually keep that as our answers here, because that's not going to change. So now if we have 3.7 plus 4.45, we can actually just add those together. So then we roll that number down here. And so 8.15 times 10 to the 20th is our answer. And if you notice, if we were to write this out, all the zeros from the exponent of 20 would line up. And so really this is the only math we would have to do even if we wrote those out in standard form. Alright, so now let's say if we're going to divide two scientific notation numbers. Alright, the shortcut that I would normally do here is to separate these out. So you can draw a line straight down here. So now you can just focus to everything that's on the left. So 2 over 8 gives you a quarter, or 1/4, so a quarter. So you get 2.5. We're still going to end up having times 10, but we have to figure out what that exponent is. When you divide, you can take and subtract your exponents. So it's always the numerator minus the denominator. So you have 21 minus 3. So that is going to give us 17. So 2.5 times 10 to the 17th is our answer. So now let's say instead of dividing, we're going to multiply. So just like we did before, we can look at just the beginning numbers. And then we can look at just our exponents. We get 27. And then with our exponents, so instead of subtracting like we did when we divide, we are going to add them. So we have -8 plus a -4. So that's like saying -8 minus 4. That gives us a -12. But is that finished? So remember, we only can have one digit in front of our decimal place, so we have to move this decimal point over to the left. So that's going to give us 2.7 times 10, and since we moved it to the left, we have to add 1 to our exponent. So -12 plus 1 gives us that -11. So that would be our final answer there. Okay, if you have any other questions about scientific notation, please make sure that you ask your homeroom teacher. And you can also work on the Study Island Pathways from 8.1. Okay, thank you so much.